Hello, and welcome to the Post Credit Podcast. I am your host, Eric Italiano, senior writer at brobible.com, and today is Monday, January 24th, and we have a special bonus episode for y'all as we are talking with Alfonso Herrera, who stars as Javi in Season 4 of Netflix's massive hit Ozark, which returned for its fourth and final season, even though it's been broken up into parts 1 and 2 on January 21st. So I'm assuming since it's one of the biggest shows in the world that you have already binge-watched it, so let me just warn you now. This conversation contains spoilers, all the spoilers in the world for Season 4, Part 1 of Ozark. Alfonso was nowhere near as menacing and terrifying as his Javi character was, which just goes to show how great of an actor he is. So I hope that you enjoy this bonus episode and conversation, and we will catch you all either later this week or next week for our usual show. Okay, folks, today I am joined by Alfonso Herrera, who you know as Javi, in a scene-stealing role, and I emphasize the word scene-stealing, and that's that's a lot about a lot of what we're going to talk about today is how he managed to do so. Congratulations on the show. Today is Monday the 24th, so it's been out for 3 days now, and because it's one of the biggest shows in the world, I'm sure a lot of people have already binged it and have been fully immersed in your character. So I actually want to start off with you personally. I enjoy joy. I'm always interested in hearing about the moments when people realize that they're about to do something great. So can you tell me about the moment you landed this role and sort of what went through your head at that time?
Of course. I was in Mexico City during the pandemic. It was 2020. It was around September or so. And I received an audition from my agents, and it was from Ozark. And I'm a huge fan of Ozark. Who is not a huge fan of Ozark? So when that happened, I saw the audition and I was like, this is incredible. This is so fun. And besides, I was reading the part and I immediately saw sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't happen. And when I read that, I saw like the essence of this guy who he's charming, but at the same time, he hides lots of stuff. And I thought, okay, it's going to be a fun audition. It's going to be a fun audition to play. So I did that. I connected to the casting director, an amazing casting director in New York. It was also an amazing experience.
Over Zoom?
Over Zoom, yeah. It was just like that. Boom, just like that. And 4 days later, my agents told me, okay, man, it's yours. You landed the role, so we have to plan. You have to plan to move to Atlanta soon. And it was like, whoa, what are you talking about? I mean, it's Ozark. Because I'm a huge fan of the show. I'm a huge fan of the show. And that's how it happened. And when I arrived to Atlanta, it was like I was constantly pinching myself. It was incredible, man.
Had you ever played a role like this before?
I did something. I did a part not so long ago in Queen of the South. It was with Alicia Braga and Henki Madera, two wonderful actors. But I mean, the way Ozark is written, the situation, how everything is planned, and I'm going to tell you why I think it's such an interesting show, because we've seen so many stories that talk about drug trafficking, money laundering, etc. But those stories, they position the responsibility in the South. But this story positions the responsibility in a global area, in a wider context, which makes more sense. Because I don't know if you've heard of the story 000 from Roberto Saviano.
I've heard of the show. I've not watched it, but I hear it's incredible.
It's really good. But what Roberto Saviano plans is like cities around the world, countries around the world, they navigate through this financial scheme, but it's invisible to the corporate eye, but it's there. And Ozark plans this in a micro world that it's in Ozark, Missouri, and that's like the microcosmos, and that happens there. So imagine what happens on a macrocosmos in bigger spaces, in bigger cities. So it plans like a more responsible view towards that specific fact. And it doesn't just, the responsibility doesn't necessarily just go to the South, as constantly happens.
It's a great point. I think it makes you realize that just because the cartel is based in Mexico doesn't mean that they're the only ones responsible for its continued existence.
Exactly.
I want to ask you, and this sort of touches on what you just brought up. How did this character to you differ from a typical Mexican drug lord that we so often see in movies and TV? And why was that important to you?
I think the important things are the things that you hide on a scene. You have to nurture your character with the things that you're not necessarily going to say. You have to nurture your character with things that you're not necessarily going to say out loud, but are there. And specifically here, I mean, he's just a guy that wants to have fun. He's young, he's younger than Omar. He's ambitious, but he wants to have fun. But at the same time, he enjoys life, and he enjoys these little things that can be a glass of wine, beer, a good conversation, as you, as me, as every single person. But the only thing that differentiates this guy from us is his past is a little bit awkward in terms of where he was raised, how he was raised. But it doesn't matter. In the end, he's just a guy that wants to who wants to appreciate life at its simplest. That's what I wanted to bring to set and to each and every single scene, even though we were talking about, I don't know, for example, what happened in episode 7. I don't want to create spoilers, but he just went there at the last scene. He just went there, and it's like, there's no difference between him having a glass of wine and understanding that he had to fulfill his work, and he knew he did what he had to do, and he feels pleasure. And the balance between what is one thing and the other, he doesn't know how to differentiate those. I hope I made myself clear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that sort of push and pull between the modernness of Javi and the old school ways of Omar, and how different
exactly
those two are.
That is also a very good point. He wants to build a corporation in his mind. He wants to build as he says, an LLC. He wants to build something bigger. He wants to build something more like a corporation, and he wants to step aside of, it's not just a family business. I want to grow and to create something bigger, wider, something that I was part of, and at the same time that I built.
I forget, is he the one that brings up like having it run like a tech company? Is that Javi?
Exactly. He arrives with the lawyer, and he says it's amazing, because it's very ambiguous, because at some point he says, okay, we should run things like in Mexico, like a family thing, but at the same time, I don't agree being an LLC. But in the end, he wants to build a corporation. Right. He wants to have actions, et cetera, et cetera.
So when I talk to actors, something that they often cite, a key to understanding and how to bring characters to life, is not to judge them. Exactly. I imagine that's pretty difficult when playing someone like this. So how does that difficulty in not judging somebody who's objectively abhorrent influence the process of creating this character?
When I first read the episodes, I really laughed at what he was doing. I enjoyed him. I really enjoyed Javi. So it was not difficult for me to say, I like this guy. I really like this guy. And obviously there are some parts that
he's a charming devil. That's what makes him dangerous.
Exactly. So I didn't have that much of a problem of not judging Javier. On the contrary, and that's why it's so fun to play Javi, because the possibilities are, it's so unpredictable. He's so unpredictable. that I did like 5 or 6 takes different from each one another, and each option could fit in. And besides, with the response from great actors as Jason and Laura, like unique things happened on set. So, but going back to your question about judging the character, I didn't have that much of a problem. I enjoyed Javi, and I really loved reading the script. So it was fun. It was fun to play that.
Let me ask, are you a football fan?
I am a huge football.
Okay.
Football as soccer, right?
Of course.
Thank you.
Who?
Thank you, Eric.
Who's your team, sir?
Well, it depends on the league. It depends on the country.
Okay, well, the reason that I bring up football is because I saw your character of bringing on a goal scorer in like the final 20 minutes of like the Champions League final, right? Like that's sort of how like you are being injected into this, one of the biggest shows on earth, to be a game changer at the tail end of it. Talk to me about what that's like.
I don't see it like that, man. I don't see it like that because I constantly try to do my best. And it might sound cliche, but it's not. I just go there, try to do my job the best I can. All the family members, and I say family members from Ozark, were there since season 1, trying to give their A-level game, delivering their A-level game, and the only thing that I tried to do was the best I could, because I knew the importance of this show and I knew the importance of this character, and I didn't want to fuck it up. I really didn't want to fuck it up. I wanted to do something that was, first of all, interesting for me, and at the same time interesting for the rest of the audience. I mean, that's the main goal. And the only thing that it's like a final Champions League game is right now, like the response of the people. The response has been amazing. It has been very positive. And the only thing I can say is I'm glad I didn't fuck it up.
Well, sir, I would definitely say that you achieved your goal. And let me just say that what I found so compelling about the character, in contrast to the rest of the characters in the show, is that other than Darlene, I find that everybody in this world is very reserved, and sort of their ambition and rage bubbles under the surface, whereas you were just like a firecracker on the surface level. And it brings such an interesting sort of chemistry dynamic that I don't think this show has had so far, where there's this unpredictable fireball that's liable to explode and blow things up at any second.
Yeah. Yes, he is a hothead. He's constantly trying to go like 2 steps ahead of the person that he has in front. But sometimes he's not very intelligent. His impulses is sometimes his worst enemy. And
I could relate to that. I mean, who can't? Yeah.
I know, man. I know. But yeah, even though he's a firecracker, he's a hothead, he's trying to do his best to implode and not to explode. But in the end, it's impossible. It's not Javi's essence. And that is this internal fight that he constantly has. And he ends up exploding at some point.
Yeah. So the show has been out for a few days, and because it's on Netflix, I'm assuming it's a binge watch show. So I'm just going to say this now. This is a spoiler warning, because there are some things that I want to talk to you about that I have to ask about. So if you haven't finished part 1 of season 4, now's your time to tune out. This is a spoiler warning. Okay, Javi? I mean, sorry, Alfonso.
Don't worry, man. That's the best compliment I've had.
I'm locked in now, because now I'm going to ask you the nitty gritty. Talk to me about your intense face-off with Bateman. Are that like where you surprise him at the lawyer's house? Are there any stories that come to mind? And what was it like having to beat up on your director?
What I enjoyed a lot about Jason is that his talent, it's equivalent to his generosity. He is incredibly generous on set, and not just with cast, with every single member from crew. And if you have a number 1 that sets the tone like that, it's very easy to work with someone like that. I mean, and specifically that scene, that episode, it was directed by Robin Wright. So it was amazing to see that collaboration between Jason and with Robin, and us working the scene together. And what I really admired from Jason was he was there and he was physically there. And sometimes there was a double and he said, no, 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 I'm going to do it myself. It has to do that. It has to be that way. And I was trying to be very careful because of the physicality of the scene.
Right.
He was like, don't worry, man. I mean, I have protection. You're good. You're cool. Let's just try to make it the best it can be. And it was great, man. Specifically that scene, it was choreographed very well. And Jason, he's Jason Bateman.
He was game.
He was amazing.
That reminds me, I once interviewed Guy Pearce and I was asking about his role in LA Confidential with Russell Crowe. And there's a scene where Russell Crowe throws him around the room. And Guy Pearce had told him, like, hey, Russ, go ahead, man, toss me around. But then Russell Crowe really started like throwing him around the room. He was like, whoa, whoa. That's good to hear that Bateman was game. Not to get too side, but how many takes did that scene take?
It was like probably we had like 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 emplazamientos, like 5 shots, and from each shot we did approximately like 4 to 5 takes.
Gotcha.
Something like that.
It's a great scene. I really do. I think that you guys both, Marty Bird's ability to talk his way out of life and death is an unbelievable.
He's really, I mean, I don't know how, because if I put into Marty's shoes, it's like how can he manage like Javi, his son, Ruth, and he's like completely calm. And Jason, he's like that. He's like super calm, super easy every single time on set. I mean, I guess that him as a director, as a producer, he constantly has a lot of information, but he's always calm. He's always gentle with every single member from cast and crew.
So again, I'm going to remind those out there, this is a spoiler question, so it's coming. What was your reaction when you read the script, when you found out that you were going to have the season, not only the season's most pivotal dramatic scene, but one of the series' most dramatic scenes, where you, as cold-bloodedly as possible, put a bullet in Darlene and Wyatt? I want to hear what that's like from your perspective as a performer, to be given that moment.
When I read that, I was in shock. I was completely in shock, because it's like, I mean, I saw Darlene. I mean, we all saw Darlene, and she was just amazing. What Lisa did was incredible. And I remember I arrived to set, and I said this in another interview, but it was taken a little bit out of context. But I remember I saw her. I saw Lisa, and she looked at me, and it was the first time we were working together. And it was her last day. And she saw me, and I saw her, and she just came in and hugged me. And she said, this is going to be tough. And I just said, Lisa, I mean, I don't know if it's an honor or if I'm sad, but I'm just happy to be part of this process. I'm just happy to be sharing a scene with you. And it was a tough moment, not just for her, but for every single member. I mean, there are people that were there since season 1 that saw her. And it was very sad. Everybody was very, very sad at that moment, because it was like a goodbye, not just from a character, but for a performer.
Right, of course. So what was your mindset going into that scene? What kind of what was the most important thing that you were trying to portray?
He just wanted to be cold, direct, and that's it. It was very technical. It was super technical. I think that scene specifically, it was super, super technical. Efficient. Exactly.
I know it's not so meant to be funny, but I watch with my parents, and when he says, whoever you are, I don't know who you are, sorry. We thought that was pretty funny. And I also want to say that this is something that Darlene learned the hard way, and I would advise Javi to do the same. There's always a bigger dog.
Oh, yes.
There's always a bigger dog.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And Darlene refused. And as soon as Javi showed up in her house, you could tell she regretted every decision that she had made that led her up to that point.
Yes, and it's true. There's a bigger dog always, and it's the story of life, and who knows what's going to happen in part two.
Yeah,
What I can say is,
please.
if you think it was mind blowing what happened in part one, part two is exponentially. It's mind blowing.
Now, can you tell us if you've shot it yet, or?
Yes, we already did that.
Oh,
We
it's
already
shot.
did the whole thing. Yeah.
It's in the can. Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Alfonso, just a few more and I will have you on your way. What did you find to be the most important aspect of creating this character, and what was the most difficult?
The most important aspect was most important. I mean, we were shooting during the pandemic, and it was like the second wave, and it was tough. It was tough to just go there, work, go back, lock yourself in. It was a responsible thing to do because that was what the platform suggested, and it was the responsible thing. So that part was important in terms of safety, in terms of try to maintain my head busy. I mean, I was away from home, so I tried to keep my head busy. I tried to read. I tried to study a lot. So that was important. In the personal aspect, it was not easy. And specifically talking about Javi, it was very easy, and it was the predictable thing to do was to explode, to just explode. And it was just to understand the scene, but try to keep the energy very well contained, even though what's happening inside of Javi, he's yelling at it, but try to pull that energy back and to maintain it in a safety zone.
Is there anything about playing a villain that you enjoy more or less than when you play a quote unquote hero?
Well, they tend to do more things that
more fun shit.
there are more ups and downs, and I think that is fun. That is fun to play. And specifically about Javi, I mean, talking about villains, but Javi, I want to think as Javi as a three-dimensional character that he just enjoys what he's doing. If he eats, he just enjoys. If he's gonna talk, he's enjoying it. He's really living the present.
You look like
in
you
a
had
certain way.
Well, just to your point, you looked like you had an absolute blast filming the scene where you go out to dinner with the Bird family. You just seemed like you were eating that up, man.
Yeah, I had like 20 oysters. Like the guys from production were like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, don't worry. I just had breakfast. I just have a very light breakfast." And we shot that scene at midnight, something like that. And I really was starving, so I ate a bunch of oysters. Perfect. And they were delicious.
Alfonso, I got one more for you, and then I'll let you go. What is the key to stealing a scene without overacting?
I have no idea, and that is not for me to say. I do not consider myself that I steal. It's very easy to work with people that are so talented. It's very easy to just explore things that when you're studying and then you go to set and then you see the reaction of such amazing characters and amazing performers, it takes the scene into another place because you need that stimulus. It's a stimulo. In Spanish, we say stimulo. That how can you say that in English?
Stimulus?
Yeah, that stimulus.
That spark.
Exactly. So when you have two eyes that are locking eyes with you and you have someone that is like Laura Linney, it's incredible. But the only thing that I can say is that every single person brought their A-level game, and the result is there, and that's why the people are enjoying this season so much.
Alfonso, congrats on your fantastic work in this series and your career as whole. I really enjoyed you in this part. I can't wait to see what you do in part 2, and I hope that everyone had the same reaction to your performance as I did, because when I say I genuinely thought that you stole this season, I really mean that.
Thank you.
So thank you again for your time, and to whatever football team you do root for, I hope they do well this year.
Gracias, Eric. Abrazo, y thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
Take care, man. Bye-bye.